Sziasztok! Köszöntöm a nézőket, én Balogh Zsófi vagyok, a mai vendégem Tommie McDonald, brit pornószínész és producer, aki az elmúlt 8 évben független pornóipari szereplőként tevékenykedett Magyarországon. 2022. decemberében Last Cast című podcastjában interjút készített egy pornószínésznővel, aki az őt ért durva szexuális és fizikai abúzusról számolt be, amit Rocco Siffredi, a több mint 30 éven Magyarországon tevékenykedő világhírű pornószínész követett el. Tommie azóta több tucat színésznővel beszélt, akik hasonló visszaélésekről, esetenként brutális erőszakról számoltak be, nem csak Siffredivel, de a másik magyarországi székhelyű pornosztárral, Pierre Woodmannel kapcsolatban is. Illetve feltárta azt is, hogy egyes modellügynökségek és közvetítő ügynökök hogyan hálóznak be és szolgáltatnak fiatal, kiszolgáltatott nőket a két sztár számára, gyakorlatilag futtatóként működve. Tommie-t a történetek nyilvánosságra hozása óta komoly fenyegetések érték a pornóiparon belülről, illetve közvetlenül Siffredi és Woodman részéről is. Azóta el is hagyta Magyarországot, de most kifejezetten a mai interjú kedvéért ideutazott, hogy a Partizán nézőinek beszámolhasson a történtekről. Arról is beszélgetni fogok vele, hogy egykori pornószínészként és producerként miért jutott arra az elhatározásra, hogy fölfedje a pornóiparon belüli visszaéléseket. Szeretném felhívni a figyelmet, hogy a beszélgetésben elhangzanak rendkívül felkavaró beszámolók szexuális és fizikai erőszakról. Mindenki belátása szerint nézze meg az adást. A Partizánt a csatornára való feliratkozáson kívül a Patreon oldalunkon keresztül is tudjátok támogatni. Ha lehetőségetek van rá, szálljatok be a finanszírozásunkba. Erről minden információt megtaláltok a leírásban. Tommie, welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Firstly, please tell us who you are, what your work is, and your connection to Hungary.
Okay, so I'm Tommie McDonald, and I moved to Hungary 8 years ago. The reason was to start a porn business here. I owned a porn website that I'd started in England, but we had an issue with financial discrimination, so we weren't able to open a bank account in the UK. But Hungary was very welcoming to the porn industry. Other porn companies were here. It's like a hub, so it saves us a lot of money. Models are always flying in, so you don't need to fly them to England. So things like that, like a lot of benefits that you get from anywhere where you've got like a lot of other companies in the same industry. So that's why I moved here. I kind of quit my main site about 3 years ago. And I was looking for other things to do, so I invested in a kind of OnlyFans clone. It didn't work out. It was a bad investment, and I started a podcast about it was sex education for men primarily. The idea was that with having a porn site, I get so many emails from disaffected young men, and I think there's a lot of unhappy men out there that simply don't know how to attract a partner. Maybe don't know how to have a real relationship, or they have problems like that. And I just wanted to kind of be sex positive, discuss sex in like a fun, friendly way, make people laugh, but hopefully they learn something too that helps their lives. And I thought, you know what, most men don't really, seek out sex education. So, but they do watch porn. So the podcast was with porn stars teaching people about sex and relationships. So it's kind of a fun twist. And the podcast went out of control in December.
So what happened then?
A guest came on my podcast called Nellie Kent, and we were there to discuss rough sex. And the reason I thought we'd be discussing it is because many girls I meet in my private life often complain that men maybe watch porn and then they're rough with their partner and hurt them. Not because they want to hurt them, but because they think women want this. So we thought, having a porn star that kind of specializes in rough sex, teaching guys like how to do it, like what the limits are, like how to do it ethically, I guess, would be a fun episode. But on the podcast, she spoke out against Rocco Siffredi. She accused him of violent acts, excessive violence, basically. During sex.
Well, Rocco is a boxer. He was a boxer for a very short time, and he's punching girls. And when I did the scene with him, he said to me, I'm going to make you cry today. And I was like, why would you make me cry? He was like, because I love it, because I just want to see you cry. He was slapping me so hard, like I was 43 kilos, and he's a man, he's very tall and muscular. I had no idea what I'm getting into it. He was putting the cameras on. I had no idea what it's going to be. Like, he didn't explain me anything.
I've been working in the porn industry for 8 years. It's an open secret that Rocco is very violent with women. Most girls that work with him complain about him privately. And I always wondered why no girls speak out. And I always used to kind of criticize European girls and think that they're weak or cowardly even, because they never speak out about problems. Whereas in America, if there's a problem on set, the girls speak out or take legal action against the company, and things change and improve and processes are put in place to protect people. And bad actors are removed from the industry. You know, they're kind of blacklisted. And I even asked her on the podcast, like, if this is true, why don't other girls speak out about it? And she said, because she's brave, everybody else is scared. If they speak out, you know, they lose work, they lose their career. But she was very adamant how brave she was.
So how much agency does a porn actor have on set? How does this look like?
I think we like to think that it varies by country, first and foremost.
If we focus on Hungary.
In Hungary, I'd say the bulk of models coming in are coming in through 2 agencies. And half of those models are coming from Russia and Ukraine. And what I learned during the course of this story is that like, it's common knowledge most of them are working here illegally. Less so now, since the war. It's harder for them to get tourist visas. And that puts them in an incredibly vulnerable position. Because if they say no, you know, even if the agent doesn't threaten it, you know, the threat is always hanging over them. You know, you'll lose work, you won't have money to live here, you won't be able to stay in Europe. We could send you back home if you don't do what we say. But there's a lot more to it than that as well. Like, one of the things I learned is that almost all Russian and Ukrainian girls in the porn industry are sex trafficked. At the beginning, they're introduced to porn via Russian porn agents. And they're told that porn is blocked in their country. Porn is illegal in Russia. We're just making it for the Western market. They don't tell them about all the piracy and how it will be all over VK, which is like the Russian Facebook. And they kind of, you know, bring them in, get as many scenes as they can out of them. Some productions shoot in Russia, which is run purely by organized crime because porn is illegal there. And then once they've got as much as they can out of them, they send them to Europe. Although some are sent to Europe first, usually Budapest. They shoot as many scenes as they can during that tour. Then they go back home to Russia. Then their scenes come out. Their family and friends see them. Most of them have their lives ruined, and then we never see them again. We don't know what happens to them. But the ones that survive, that, you know, like, okay, well, I've done it now. And then they continue to have a porn career. I'd say maybe it's about 10% of the Russians. With Hungarians, it's a similar story. Often they think they're going to be fashion models on the casting, and they're pressured into doing porn.
How?
In many different ways. It's been happening here for 30 years. And generally it's through agents. The agent will collaborate with a producer, and the agent will, like, I interviewed someone that used to recruit models for Pierre Woodman, and he also had an agency here, and he went to prison for sex trafficking. So, you know, I don't see any reason for him to, you know, lie to me. And he said that recruiting girls for porn, it didn't work without lying to them, because you've got to get them in the room. And then once they're in the room, then you tell them it's porn.
The room meaning the set?
They would book a hotel room for the casting, and the girl would go up to the room. They'd tell her it's a paid interview, it's a paid casting to like entice them. So they don't get like a lot of money for a casting. And then they would be told it's porn. And there's videos online where you can see the shock on their face when they see it's porn. And then they can be talked to for up to 9 or 10 hours until they give in. One of the more serious allegations is that a lot of the girls didn't speak English, and what they do during the casting is like they tell them, okay, well, you know, let's have sex, pay you for the sex. It's just a casting. It's not for the internet. And then they sign a piece of paper to say that, you know, I'm over 18, and, you know, they're told that this piece of paper is to say that they've accepted money for this, but they're not told that it's a model release and that the porn's going to be on the internet. Now, I don't think that situation happens with Hungarian girls anymore. That's like the most extreme, but I would estimate it to have happened with at least 600 Hungarian girls.
What do you mean not anymore?
You can't get away with as much anymore. So people have kind of refined their schemes, tried to make them look more legal. At the moment, girls are recruited for porn and then sent to a producer who kind of breaks them in. They'll be sent to the producer and told it's just a casting. They won't tell them if they're having sex with 1 boy or 5 boys, if it's vaginal or anal or double anal or whatever. They'll send them there, and then that producer will pressure them and push them, call them stupid if they don't, you know, do what he wants, like, and also entice them, you know, telling them things like, oh, we'll get you, you know, I'm friends with Playboy, I'll get you, you know, Playboy deals, I'll get you this, I'll get you that, you know, promising the world to them. But it doesn't happen, obviously. They just, you know, have sex and do the most extreme things the producer can get them to do. And they're in a situation where they can't say no. That's the problem. Because, like, if I book you for a job in television, say, you know what channel it's on, what concept it is, like what's expected of you, and you say yes or no based on that situation. You don't get told, oh, it's a news program, and then you arrive and then it turns out to be reality TV and they're humiliating you in some way. And when you're there on the day, it's really hard to say no. And that's the problem these girls have. It's absolutely wild.
If some viewers are watching right now and thinking, well, but still, they wanted to do porn, they went to an agent, or they went to this meeting, they wanted to do porn, so, well, who cares if it was more than what they thought about before?
Yeah, I think, like, people do say that, but I think people don't really understand consent. People always think, well, she didn't say no, so it wasn't rape. And it wasn't rape, but it was sexual assault. Like, there's like this myth that rape is only a violent act committed by a stranger, and it almost never is. Rape is almost always, or sexual assault and rape, almost always someone you know, either a friend or colleague or someone that you trust being with, that takes advantage of that situation. And these girls, they want to do, many of them want to do porn, they want to be famous, they want to have sex, they want to be provocative, they want to make money. But that doesn't mean that they should be abused. I'm not just talking about sexual assault or pushing them past their limits. I'm talking about physical violence. The girls are being hit. And like, I think a lot of porn that's filmed in Budapest is domestic violence porn. It's not like, there's no sexual fun in seeing a woman hit and battered and beaten, like when she doesn't want to be. like, that's not porn, that's just violence. And there's a lot of that. And I think if we, like, if I just back up a little bit, because I think I just splurged way too much. Like, what happened when the Rocco story came out on my podcast, I started getting a lot of views, and then the industry silenced Nelly and made her say that she didn't say any of those things on the podcast. She said, I edited it to change what she said. But it's like a long form podcast, it's impossible. And I even saw text messages. So Rocco contacted Nelly, completely understandable, but I think if she lied, go through a lawyer, sue her for defamation. Her agent contacted Nelly. Now, Nelly didn't work for this agent. So an agent that doesn't work for Nelly contacted her to try and get her to retract her story. Lots of other producers in the porn industry, lots of performers in the porn industry. So to her, like, she told me on a phone call, it felt like everybody was hounding her and telling her, like, what are you doing? You're trying to destroy the porn industry. This is bad for everybody. And you know that they did silence her. And that was the most nefarious thing to me, because if the victims can't even speak out, then that means people can get away with anything, and they do. And the story from that crazy point got crazier and crazier and crazier. So I felt like if Nelly hadn't been, or if I didn't see, like, the message from her agent at Real Babes, who were silencing her, if I didn't see that, I probably wouldn't have followed up on the story, because I would have thought, okay, maybe she was lying. But yeah, I just felt like I had a responsibility to look into it more. So I started searching for Rocco Siffredi's videos, and it took me 5 minutes to find videos of him. I obviously have to be careful what I say for legal reasons, but as an expert in porn and sex, it looked like multiple anal rapes on camera. Like, the girls are saying, he's like, can I have he's like, I want to have anal sex with you. The girl says no, multiple times. He has anal sex with her anyway. The girl's saying, no, it hurts. And he says, but I like it. And this is porn that's produced by the biggest porn company in the world. Like, people think Pornhub's the biggest porn company in the world, but actually Gamma Entertainment, who own Adult Time, they have more productions. They produce much more professional porn. They're based in Canada, and they're known for projecting this kind of squeaky clean, more feminist image. They, like, appear to take like, women's rights seriously, and yet their team are editing videos of girls being sexually assaulted, of girls breaking down in tears because of the violence they experienced on set. One girl, in a video I found, she clearly states that she doesn't want to do porn, and he kind of forces her to do porn anyway.
And this is up there?
It's just up there, yeah. And it's like everybody, and like millions of people are getting off on this. And the way porn works is a lot of marketing is done through affiliates. And you manage affiliates very closely. So they get like 50% of the sale if they make a sale for you and send you traffic. And their affiliate, one of their biggest affiliates, was even advertising it as rape and making a joke of it. And they were completely fine with that, because like affiliates can also send you fraudulent traffic. So you have to be very careful and manage them closely. But they had no qualms with advertising his videos as rape videos. And it's like, when I pointed it out, with this company's reputation, I expected them to say, because I know the people that work there, like it's a very small industry. And I tried raising it through like back channels, because I don't want to destroy the porn industry because of a few bad people. And nobody took me seriously. They decided to ignore it rather than take any action. I thought they'd investigate and probably delete his site and stop working with him, at the very least. But that didn't happen, and people told me that they decided to ignore it. Their representative in Europe decided to ignore it. So I started, I think I'm the first porn producer to ever start an anti-porn campaign. So I kind of put things together, and I said to people that listen to the podcast, please contact Visa and MasterCard and report these videos. It is against the payments company's rules. That's who censors the internet. Like, they decide what content's allowed and what's not, whether it's WikiLeaks being financially hampered, or if it's a porn site like Pornhub when they lost payment processing because they had rape videos. But Gamma Entertainment, it was reported to Visa and MasterCard. They got different treatment to Pornhub. Like, Pornhub lost the ability to process payments because they were making money from rape videos. What Gamma Entertainment did, I don't know how good their connections are, but they must be powerful. It was reported to Visa and MasterCard. There was an investigation. And what they did is they protected themselves and decided to protect Rocco. They removed his videos from their main website, which is called Adult Time. And it's like Pornhub, but for paid porn. So you can see like all of their sites on one place. They removed his videos to a separate domain. And then they deleted all of his videos. So the only videos left on his website are like videos of other actors having sex with girls. But I've got dozens and dozens of complaints by girls for alleging sexual assaults by Rocco. And in many cases, the sexual assault is visible in the video. Like, his most common trick is he books the girl just for a blowjob video, which is usually cheaper. And then he'll pressure them to get as much from them as he can during the casting. And he'll say like, oh, it's just organic, it's natural. But he's like pressuring for anal sex, pushing for sex, when it's supposed to just be a blowjob scene. And he's even selling it to the camera as, yeah, I booked this girl for a blowjob. But he's doing more. And, you know, when you're in a room, when your agent tells you, oh, this is the most important producer, he's so famous, he's a celebrity in Italy, and they want to be a porn star. Like, the power imbalance is so huge. Like, he's had 40 years of shooting porn, and these girls are fresh, often doing maybe their first to third scene with him. And
how old are the girls usually when they get into the industry?
Usually 18 to 21, I'd say. Like, they have no life experience, none. And nobody is telling them, like, watch out for this, watch out for that. It seems like their agents, not all agents actually, but in Budapest, it's one particular agent, seems to be at the heart of many of the problems.
Is it an agency, a company, or one person?
It's a company. It's Real Babes. It's run by people called Esther and Robbie. There's a lot of dirt on these people. It doesn't take long to find horrific stories.
What do you mean?
I don't know if I can say, because my understanding is that legal records in Hungary are private information, not public like they are in the UK. But they're not good people. Put it that way.
So what is Real Babe's relationship with Rocco or the production companies?
That's the question. You see, an agent should be working for the model. Like in media, your agent usually works for the talent, and their job is to get the highest fee for the talent. And then in porn, the business model is the agent recruits the model, usually through scouts. I use the word scouts in quotation marks, often, so let's not, some of them...
Pimps?
Possibly. That's the allegation with some of them, certainly. And so they models get scouted, sometimes directly, sometimes through partners. And then when they provide the model to a company, they get 20% on top of their fee. So the model usually gets like 500 to 600 euros. More attractive models or models with more social media followers get a higher fee.
For one shoot?
Yeah, for like basic vaginal sex with one boy. So the more extreme, the more the fee is. But yeah, some producers may pay an extra fee, usually about 500 euros, but it depends on the agent, to be the first to get a girl. So getting a girl's first scene is valuable because, like for example, I shot a few girls' first scenes that had never done porn before, and you make so much money. Whereas a girl that's already done porn, it's just another girl on your site. So a first scene is very important. It's lucrative. So people kind of, you know, bid, I guess. Like there's almost like an auction. Rocco Siffredi and Pierre Woodman are the two biggest producers in Budapest. They tend to get girls first. So they kind of compete to be the first with most girls that come here. So
the agencies that are supposed to work for the performers end up being recruiters, in Hungary at least, based on these stories.
It seems more like the girls work for the agency. Not with all agencies, but certainly with Real Babes. The girls on my podcast, like Shona River, she described the situation with agents, with Real Babes specifically.
Shona is a Hungarian.
Yeah, Hungarian porn star. But she quit porn because she just felt that she wasn't treated well. But she described the relationship with Real Babes and how it felt like she worked for them. Like they would never tell her enough information for a shoot. They would like withhold it because they don't want the girl to say no. And if you do say no, they get angry and rude with you. It's like almost like, why aren't you doing what you're told?
Because for me, it's often happened that they would just send me a quick message like, hey, you free tomorrow or in 2 days or in 3 days, boy-girl movie for this much money. And when I started asking, so for which company, who is the male actor or female actor, and this kind of stuff, then my agent always got so angry with me and like labeled me as being difficult. I feel like sometimes we are a pack of baby wipes. And I am like a piece of baby wipes, and if they don't like me, they just wipe their dick in me or hand and then throw away, and they have a whole pack and they just don't care. We are like replaceable, disposable.
So that's the kind of relationship. They have all the power and the girl has no power because there's only 2 agents in Budapest. So like there's a third one, but they're so small, they're insignificant now. So it's like, if you, like that agent can just destroy your career by just not giving you any work.
So did you see anything firsthand on set that you were in where girls were exploited or just uncomfortable or seemingly not really having enough information about what goes on?
I've seen booking information for many girls, and I've also seen what looks like sex trafficking. Because one of the problems is because of all the violence in the Hungarian porn industry, they've kind of like destroyed it. Not many girls come into it anymore. And a lot of productions have closed down. Like in America, the porn industry is booming. It has problems, a lot of problems, but it keeps trying to improve. And the industry is growing and, fees keep going higher. There's more models coming in. Because with OnlyFans, like the industry is a lot bigger now than it used to be. But in Europe, the emphasis seems to be on extreme porn. The girls don't tend to make much money on their OnlyFans, unlike British and American models. So they have no independent income, which would give them the power to be able to say no to agents and no to work they don't like. But yeah, with Real Babes, I see that they're often sending girls to jobs that are not legitimate. Like you have to question whether a lot of the jobs they're sending girls to are even porn productions. To me, it looks like escorting, but where the client has a camera and doesn't wear a condom. And I've received text messages and had conversations with girls that have corroborated that. And in fact, just last week, there was a viral news story about the European Sex Championships. A brand new porn company, their website looked unprofessional, new. It looked like something from the 90s, you know. And Real Babes had sent 3 girls there. And another agent I spoke to said, you know, the whole thing was a disaster. Girls allegedly didn't get paid. I don't know the full story yet, so I have to be careful with what I say. But it was a disaster. Everybody withdrew, people went home, it's all over the world. And Real Babes put out this statement saying they didn't send any models there. And I wonder why they're saying that and distancing themselves from it, because I emailed them and asked them, you know, what checks did you do to vet these people? Did you, you know, what's your process? So they put out this statement saying, oh, we didn't send any girls there. We warned girls not to go. But I've got email communications between Real Babes and this Sex Championships proving that they did, in fact, send girls there, and they even invoiced them for 3 models. So, you know, they're sending them to such shady jobs. And I think the girls want to do porn, and then they're going to a hotel room with a man with an iPhone. And they think they're doing porn, but really they're escorting. And if that's not sex trafficking, I don't know what is. You know, they didn't sign up to be escorts. I think it's illegal in Hungary to have an escort agency. But is it legal if the client has a camera? Like, and do the girls know that it's escorting? Are they, you know, do they know where it goes?
Right. So what kind of pushback have you gotten for speaking out?
The pushback's been huge. Like, at first, I got kind of like with the Rocco specifically, I got kind of like threatened a bit. But I, you know, kind of maybe lost my temper a bit with him as well in text messages. But then I posted like another podcast over Christmas, like outlining all the allegations and showing videos. And he wanted to meet in person. So I met him in person and he tried to explain, but it was just sad, quite pathetic, like watching a man trying to justify the things he does in videos and try to deny things that are so blatant.
This is a man who has a Netflix special series coming out.
I told Netflix about this. I even told the actor playing Rocco Siffredi about the allegations and linked to the videos, and nobody cared. They prefer to like glamorize his life and make money from, you know, the suffering of these girls. You know, it's like they're marketing him as a hero, but he's much worse than Harvey Weinstein or anyone like that. You know, Harvey Weinstein used coercion and fear. In the videos with Rocco, there's real violence in them. Like real violence, and it's disturbing to watch. It ruined my Christmas. Like, it's hard to unsee things like that. Like, once you see that kind of suffering, and you speak to people who have been through it, it's harrowing. Like, it's not a normal thing at all. So that was the first pushback. And then I was doing these podcasts with a good friend at the time, another Hungarian porn star, Chiara Lord, and she was encouraging me to investigate Pierre Woodman too. I didn't really want to do it because he's a bit more complicated than Rocco, and it would mean, you know, I'm one person, so investigating like 2 different companies, it's a lot. But she kept pushing a little bit. I didn't take it too seriously. But then I stumbled upon an article where a porn star called Eva Berger was accusing Rocco Siffredi of violence, but she was also accusing Pierre Woodman. And in the past, Pierre Woodman said to me, you know, if there's any allegations against me, tell me and I'll show you behind the scenes footage showing that I'm innocent. So I thought, you know, that's pretty convincing. So I didn't want to like take him on, despite hearing so many terrible stories about him. You know, I didn't know if they were true or not. I assumed they were true because there's so many, but you can't work that way. So I posted the article and I sent a message to her and I said, look, you were mentioned in this article, but you said you'll show me behind the scenes footage showing that you didn't have a problem on the Eva shoot. And he went absolutely crazy, like hounding me with text messages, calling me stupid. Like his evidence that everything was fine on the Eva shoot was that they had dinner and she was smiling afterwards. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly consent, Consent is, someone agreeing to something and knowing what they're agreeing to. Like, that's the key. Agreeing without being pushed, pressured, scared, none of those things. So I managed to, I looked through her video, and the violence in the video was so distressing. It was like, I'd never seen porn like that before. We're talking about, at one point, she was bleeding out of her anus and screaming, in terror. And they just keep having sex with her very aggressively. At one point, she gets suffocated with a pillow. And I'm like, at what point in the conversation before the video did they say, oh, we're going to suffocate you with a pillow? At what point is bleeding okay in porn? And that, they were kicking her in the breasts, kicking her in the bum. Is that porn? I know in BDSM you can have these things, but in BDSM, it's consensual. You agree to things before you do them. And this just looked like domestic violence on camera. It was a group of 5 men, basically, 4 men plus Pierre, being incredibly violent to Eva Berger. And she'd spoken out in Russian media. Russian media had taken it very seriously. But she's been talking about this for years and no one's been listening. So I got her on the podcast to speak out and tell her story.
I had no options because, in front of me, my agent, which I depend on, I live in her model house and she can kick me out at any time. Big director who didn't like that much to shoot me, but if I will shoot with him, zero experience.
Plus 4 guys.
In Europe. Plus 4 guys. So I actually felt like it's my last chance. I think what he was doing with me, it was for me quite extreme, and I didn't know it was painful. I didn't know what to wait from him. He put his leg in my mouth, he put a leg on my face, he beat my breast by his legs, all this. So it was like a wave, it was like a roller coaster, and I was like, okay, I'm fucked. It will be very hard. It will be very hard, but I will survive because I'm a strong actress. I will not complain. Everybody will be happy. I will be porn actress. I will not back home with no money and something like this. But I was shocked. I was like, fuck.
And that's when I started to realize that my role in the porn industry had also been quite evil over time. That's when I realized that the way Russian girls are recruited is through manipulation, and that many of them never wanted to do porn. They did it because they thought they could do it without anyone finding out. And I spoke to many Russian girls, and I realized that most of the Russian girls that are on my website were definitely sex trafficked. And it's just because someone else is doing the sex trafficking, I'm still benefiting. And that's been a really hard thing to process. And obviously I can't fix it. There's not I've made money from people's suffering. Everybody in Hungarian porn has made money from the suffering of Russian girls. How many of these girls would have taken their own life because they couldn't live with the family consequences? We have no idea because they just disappear. We don't hear anything from them. But I'm one of the girls that was in the video being abused by Rocco, she took her own life. I don't know if it's connected, but I'm sure it didn't help. So the Eva Eva told her story, and it sounded to me like she was just a lamb to the slaughter. Like, the amount of manipulation that went on to get her to shoot for Pierre Woodman and to be in a situation where she could not say no to anything. It was like presented to her like, this is your last chance to be a porn star. And the Russian girls are conditioned like, oh, we're Slavic girls, we're strong, we accept everything. Like, the agents condition them to be like that. You know, the European girls, they're weak because they say no. Like, that's what they tell them. It sounds childish, it sounds silly. And it's going to be so hard for people to understand, but these girls, they don't have EU visas, they're not allowed to live here. Their option is a porn career where they would get, at the time, you know, 400 to 600 euros for a day's work, or go back to Siberia and, you know, do what? Like, get that much money in a month and struggle and starve. And, you know, a lot of these girls are skinny because they can't afford food. Like, they're from very poor backgrounds in Russia. Not all of them, but many. And as a porn producer, I never asked any questions. It would have been so easy just to say, do you know this is going to be on Pornhub? Do you know your family and friends are going to see it? But I never once asked. And so they get broken in by people like Pierre Woodman or Rocco, or the more mafia type side of the porn industry in Russia. And the ones that survive, I benefit from. The ones that say, okay, my porn's out there, I book them, don't ask any questions, don't check on their welfare, just, okay, it's just another porn model. I just assume that their agent is legitimate and told them all the information. But they haven't. It's, so it escalated from there, and it just kept getting crazier and crazier. Woodman didn't take kindly to it. He had a campaign of harassment and intimidation against me.
How so?
For example, like, he used to be a policeman, so he's subtle. But I don't know if it's come from him directly, but receiving messages from people on Instagram, oh, you need to, you know, watch out for your own safety, because, you know, I heard Woodman's done this, that to people before. But you don't know if that's coming from him or just gossip. Looking up my business details and telling me, like, you know, I know where you live, like sending me my own address, like that kind of intimidation. Like, really, that for me, I'm lucky, it just motivates me more. But also, like, the clever harassment is contacting all of my closest friends and trying to scare them, like claiming he'll be able to use defamation laws against me. Oh, defamation's a criminal offence in Hungary, you'll go to prison. Obviously assuming that I don't have Google or that I'm naive. And threatening these girls, like, so much that I've got, like, it seems like you start to question, like, am I wrong? Because you have so many people calling you saying, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. The most extreme example was after the Eva Berger video came out. My co-host, not co-host, but she was like my best friend in the porn industry, and came on the podcast, and it was her idea to investigate Woodman. She on my podcast, she'd told all of her horror stories from porn. She then put out a video supporting Woodman and saying nothing bad ever happened to me in porn because you can just say no. Even though in my podcast she was saying how you can't say no. And victim blaming Eva, saying, you know, it was all her abuse was her fault, is what she said. That's what Kiara Lord said. I don't know the full reason, but I know she was buying an apartment, and I know that she was needed money. She asked another friend, a mutual friend, for a large loan. She had a lunch with Woodman, and then suddenly she comes out attacking the podcast, attacking her friends, and she buys her apartment, her financial trouble disappeared. So we wouldn't call it a coincidence, but it shows, like, the amount of power they have. Like, whatever they said to her, maybe, I don't know if she's corrupt or cowardly, but whatever they said to her, they got her to change everything she said and come out against her friends. And then afterwards, I tried so hard to keep friends with her. I talked to her and I'm like, do you actually believe the allegations against Woodman? Because like you're the one that told me to investigate. And she says, yes, she does believe them. So it's like the power these people have over the industry and over the girls in the industry is incredible. Like the threat they tried to make against Eva for coming on my podcast, because remember, most porn stars in Europe, they don't make much money in porn and they don't make much money on their OnlyFans. So most of them make their real money escorting. And escorting is a very gray area. Some countries it's legal, some countries it's not, some countries it's ambiguous. And one of the threats I saw, it was kind of an indirect threat, was that Eva will be reported to the French police for escorting and reported to all the border forces in different countries. So I'm sure they might have said that to other girls as well as a way of like controlling them. The thing is, if girls are doing kind of grey market activities, maybe not paying all their taxes, who knows, I don't know each girl's individual affairs, then they have a lot of power over them. The illegal immigrants, they have the most power over them. But anyone escorting, I think they have a lot of power over them because it's something that's, even if it's not illegal in Hungary, it's illegal in another country where they can say, okay, I'll report you there. I'll report you to the London police because I see you escorting there and you're working there illegally. You're not paying your taxes there.
Right.
So it's like the amount of levers they have is, and they've been doing this for 30 years. So they're practiced at it.
Do male performers ever face the same kind of pressure, coercion, abuse?
In Hungary, there's no gay or trans or bisexual porn industry. But my understanding is on that side of the industry where they are the talent, it can be like that. I don't know the extent to it because in Hungary we're quite cut off from that part of the industry. In Prague, there is a big like gay, bi and trans industry, but it'd be hard for me to comment on it. Male performers get a lot of pressure. The pressure they get is to be silent, like, be a good boy or, don't speak out because you won't get work. The biggest pressure men get is to inject their penis with a drug called Trimix. And what that does, it's designed for people with severe erectile dysfunction or say disabled people. So, if you can't feel anything, your wife can just inject your penis, it gets hard and you can have sex. You still have a sex life if you're disabled. So in porn, it's very difficult to get hard on camera and to have sex. And the things they're asking people to do are so extreme, like they're not sexy, they're not a turn on, and they want you to do it fast. And they're not like, creating this like kind, supportive environment where you get time to, get in the mood, get hard, do your job well. It's just like, okay, we need you to go. So what people are doing is almost every male performer in Europe, there's very few natural ones now, who are under huge pressure to inject this drug into their penis, and then they have to inject another drug 2 hours later to make their penis go down. It's like, long term, the damage is so severe. Like many men in the porn industry, their penises just don't work anymore. Some people have to have surgery to, there's a surgical implant you can have where you can basically pump your penis up manually. It sounds crazy and not a lot of people know about it, but that's the kind of pressure the males get. Or the other pressure is that as men, like we spoke before the show about one of my friends where his girlfriend was, the best way of describing it is she was gang raped on one of her porn scenes. And after he wanted to do something about it, but they decided together that they can't do anything because they want to have a career in porn. So they just had to swallow it and just carry that around. No justice, no complaining. So I think the men have to live through this. It's very difficult to, when your girlfriend, say, has a porn shoot for Rocco or Pierre, to know that they're there, to worry about their welfare, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like, do you want to work in porn or not? There's not many companies to work for. So you have to be strong and say no. It's the only protection they have.
Knowing all this, why do they or you still want to work in porn or support the industry?
Most of the industry is good. Like, one of the things you'll notice is that all of the bad actors, there's very few of them. And they're all connected. They all work together. So Pierre Woodman and Rocco Siffredi, they're kind of rivals because they kind of fight over who gets girls first. But they both work a lot with real babes, whereas more reputable companies would be, okay, let's try not to use them. They might have to use them sometimes if a girl's exclusive, but generally they'll try to avoid them. I know several porn companies that won't use them for ethical reasons. And then, like, you know, the way, and like at the moment, Woodman, for example, like the rest of the industry, most of them are good. Like, most productions are good. But, you know, like, all we want is for bad people to be punished. Like, you know, like, what, if the industry worked together, we could stop these people. And that's been one of the disappointing things, is that when I started speaking out, I thought the industry would listen, and like all of the productions would stop using real babes, say, because then, you know, girls were a lot safer. But it didn't happen. You know, money talks at the end of the day. A lot of companies, they just want money. They're only motivated by money. That's why regulations exist for industries. You know, if regulations didn't exist for the energy grid, then we would just all be burning coal for our power, right? And we'd be polluting as much as possible because that's the cheapest way. But we regulate industries. And like, that's the realization I've had, is that I expected the industry to self-regulate. And that's like a naive libertarian ideal. And now I've had this realization that actually, you know, we need the Hungarian government to set some rules. It shouldn't be this free-for-all. You know, what rights do people working in the porn industry have? Do they have any rights? Do companies shooting porn in Hungary, do they have a legal responsibility to check visas, for example? Should we be shooting illegal immigrants? Should we be punished for it? Like, personally, I think I and everybody else that's been shooting trafficked girls, like, there should be some kind of reckoning. There's nothing we can do to, like, make up for it. Like, we all did it knowingly. Everybody knew these girls were trafficked. At one point, there was a cult, a Russian yoga cult. All the cult members had to marry this man, and then what he was doing was pimping them out all over Europe.
For porn?
Escorting and porn, yeah. And we all knew about this cult, and we just laughed about it. We thought it was funny. And like, now I realize, oh, these girls were being manipulated into doing porn, and many of them didn't want to do porn. But at the time, none of us asked any questions. We were in our kind of bubble, you know. It sounds ridiculous now. But that's how it was. Sorry, I'm rambling. But
so basically, what I gather is the industries, there are companies who just turn a blind eye. They know the abuse is going on, and they know who participates in this.
We all know who the bad people are. Like,
but there's no accountability.
There is. Don't forget, one of the things that's interesting is nearly all of the productions are owned by American and Canadian companies. There's not many independent European productions anymore. And the American companies have a different standard in America to what they do in Europe. So if an actor in the US, so for example, one actor in the US, he's Canadian, but he was accused of rape in the US. So nobody would work with him in America. So he came to Europe, has a great career here, and many girls get hurt by him.
That's what I mean. I mean, Rocco Siffredi is still a huge star. Men look up to him. Pierre Woodman, the same. They can still operate freely in Hungary.
Yeah, and this is what bothers me, is that this is the last country in Europe to change. In the Czech Republic, producers are in jail for sex trafficking because of not telling girls that it's going to be on the internet, not telling girls it's going to be on the internet in the Czech Republic, just not being clear with them. In France, I believe there's 24 producers and actors in jail awaiting trial for sex trafficking. Hungary is the place where you can get away with this stuff. In Russia, they made it illegal. Like, Hungary is a very conservative country. So you have to wonder why Hungary has produced so many porn stars, whereas Poland has produced much less, despite having a much larger population. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is the huge scale of sex trafficking over 30 years. Now, some girls do want to get into porn, and they're the ones that we should be, that's enough. There's enough girls that want to do porn. We don't need to trick girls into doing it. There's enough girls that want to do it, and they're the ones that need protecting.
But it sounds like the likes of Rocco, their business model is breaking girls in who don't want to do it.
I wouldn't say that about Rocco. I'd say Pierre Woodman, yes. I'd say Rocco maybe benefits from girls that have been broken in, but I wouldn't say he's doing the breaking in so much. Not knowingly anyway. Like Pierre Woodman, for example, he, I interviewed someone that used to recruit models for him, and he said that Woodman prefers to work with pimps. And to give you an example of that, right now he's got a casting. He's going to Belgium to do some castings, and he's working very closely with a guy called Dennis Blackmagic. And Dennis Blackmagic is a convicted child rapist. He's been to prison 3 times for, one of the times it was for raping a 15-year-old child. And Woodman's happy to work with this guy. Real babes are happy to work with this guy. Like, all the bad people, they all work together, but the rest of the porn industry, they don't have anything to do with Dennis Blackmagic or the girls he recruits. But how can a girl that's recruited by a convicted rapist be safe? I mean, he showed me a gun on a video call and threatened to kill me because he didn't want me to do the story about him. And with Dennis threatening me a lot, he's even controlling the girls' phone numbers. Like, you think you're talking to one of the girls, then you get a voice message from Dennis. Like, he's controlling them that much. And Woodman's happy to work with this guy. There's another, let's say, famous Spanish pimp. I won't name him because just for defamation reasons. And Woodman also is happy to work with him. He's one of the only people that will recruit girls through this guy. And he's a nasty piece of work. And it baffles me how he gets away with it. It baffles me how Rocco gets away with it when it's on video. It's not like these allegations. This is out there. And I think one of the big problems is that people don't understand consent. They think that, because someone signed a model release, that's consent, or because there's a short video at the beginning of the scene saying, oh, yes, I agree to a hard scene and I can say no if it gets too much, that's consent. It's an agreement, it's almost consent. But if you agree to something and then you're pushed over your limit, that's not consent. If you say yes because you're scared of saying no, that's not consent. And that's the environment we've created.
What would you like Hungarian viewers to take away from this?
I know that, I think for Hungarian viewers, I think it's we have to split it into male viewers who watch porn and females who have maybe been exploited by the porn industry in the past. For girls who've been exploited, you have to go to the police. or if you can, take legal action against the companies. Like, these are very wealthy companies, and the only thing they care about is money. Like, if something terrible happened to you, you know, if you can, take legal action and you'll save a lot of people. It's the only way things will change. Or go to the police. It's so important to go to the police and report crimes. Because if people don't, then, you know, we can't change anything. But if everybody goes together, then, you know, there's a chance. There's a chance of getting some justice. And it, you know, doesn't matter if, you know, you signed paperwork and things. You just have to explain the story and why you were lied to, why you were manipulated, or, you know, what happened to you on camera that shouldn't have done. I think if everybody is going and reporting together, it's a much stronger case than one individual. It's, I think, you know, victim blaming also exists in the police, and not just here in Hungary, but also in the UK and worldwide. And I think you need numbers to go to make any difference. And for men watching, I think, I don't know, like, since I've been in Hungary, Hungarians, like, they're proud people. I think we can say that about Hungarians. And often people say to me, oh, you know, did you know Hungarian girls are the most beautiful in the world? And they're very proud of that. But, you know, I think, you know, like, look after, like, you know, your Hungarian sisters and daughters. You know, this could be anyone. Like, anyone can make a mistake. Any one of, like, your sisters or daughters can go to a modeling, to what they think is modeling recruitment, and it be porn. And they could be pressured to have sex with someone on the day. I've heard of people being blackmailed into doing porn. I've heard many horrible stories. Like, don't blame the girls, like, blame the abusers. And I don't know why Hungarians and the Hungarian government are accepting, like, foreign porn companies to come in and abuse Hungarian women. Like, why is that allowed? Like, especially given, you know, like,
their narrative.
Yeah, it's...
What about male viewers, porn viewers?
Yeah, I think for me it's about, you know, porn's fake. It's supposed to be entertainment. You shouldn't be taking lessons on how girls want to be treated from how you see Rocco or Woodman treat girls in porn videos. I've also received so many DMs from just ordinary girls saying, you know, they had sex with a guy and they were hurt. Just through aggression and the guy copying things they'd seen in porn. And some girls do like that. If the girl likes it, great, but you need to find out first.
Thank you for the conversation.
No problem.
For telling us all this.
I appreciate the opportunity.